At first there was a beach, and above the beach there was a village where 400 Japanese people lived and worked and played. Above the village there was a mountain, and carved into the sides of the mountain there were steps, and planted on each step were fields of rice. And at the very top of the mountain there was a manor house, green and gold and red. And in that house there lived the man who owned it all, the house and the fields and the village and the beach. But people didn't call him boss, and people didn't call him governor. People called him grandfather, because he lived up there with his little grandson. One day the grandson was out playing in the Japanese garden when he looked up from his toys and across the garden and across the fields and across the village and across the beach out into the ocean. And when he looked out into the ocean, he saw something. And what he saw was a wave. Now, this was no ordinary wave. This wave was tall, and this wave was wide, and this wave was rushing towards the village below more quickly than any wave the little boy had ever seen. And so he ran to fetch his grandfather and show him the wave. The old man looked at the wave, and as soon as he saw it, he knew what it was, for his father and his father's father before him had told him the story of the wave. How every 100 years a huge wave would rise from the belly of the ocean, grow to 30 or 40 feet tall, and destroy anything that was in its path. So the old man knew he had to do something. He tottered back into his house, and he came out eventually with 2 flaming torches. And he went to the fields on one side of his house and went to set the fields on fire. "Grandfather," said the little boy, "what are you doing? If you set those fields on fire, we won't have as much to eat this year." "I must do what I must do," said the old man. And he set the torches to the fields. And suddenly the fields were covered with reds and oranges and blacks, and clouds rose up into the sky. The old man looked through the clouds, looked through the smoke. He did not see what he was looking for, and so he took those flaming torches and went to set fire to the fields on the other side. "Grandfather," said the little boy, "what are you doing? If you burn those fields down, we'll have nothing to eat this year." "I must do what I must do," said the old man. And he set the torches to those fields as well. And now all the fields were covered with reds and oranges and yellows blazing, and pillars of smoke rose into the sky. The old man looked through the smoke. Still, he did not see what he was looking for. And so he took those flaming torches and went to set fire to his house. "Grandfather," said the little boy, "are you mad? If you burn our house down, we'll have nowhere to live." "I must do what I must do," said the old man. And he set the torches to the house. And now there wasn't anything on top of that mountain that wasn't covered with reds and oranges and yellows blazing, and clouds of smoke covered the sky. The old man looked through the clouds, looked down at the village, and finally he saw what he'd been looking for they are making their way up through the burning fields were the people who lived in the village. The old men and the young men and the old women and the young women and the children and the teenagers, babies on their backs and pans filled with water in their hands to put out the fire above. And just as those 400 people reached the mountain top, the wave hit the village below. It sounded like thunder. It sounded like cannons. It sounded like the hoofbeats of 1,000 horses. And when the wave hit the village below, it destroyed everything in its path and dragged the ruins of the village back into the sea. The people looked around, the burned down fields, the burned up house. Finally, the little boy asked the question everyone wanted to hear the answer to. "Why, grandfather? Why? Why did you burn down everything we have? Now we're as poor as the poorest person here." "Don't you see," said the old man, "I had to find some way to get everyone to safety. For as precious as my house and my fields are to me, each and every one of you are more precious still." Well, the people helped the old man rebuild his house. They replanted his fields. They rebuilt their village too. And when, a few years later, the old man died, they built a memorial to him in the village. A memorial that bears these words: "To our grandfather, to our Lord, who gave up everything he had to save his people from the wave."